Good evening and welcome to the June 20th, 2018 regular council meeting. And we're starting at 7:03. Just before we start the meeting, I wanted to take just a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes, but I wanted to thank a couple of people. I wanted to thank Alicia Gosling and Denise Jeremiah for being so instrumental in helping to put on the 4th annual Get to Know Your Neighbor Festival. We had a great many residents come down to the downtown area. It was a chance to mingle and visit with the downtown businesses who were able to showcase some of the products that they have. So one of the things I just wanted to mention was that in all the conferences and sessions we've been on revitalizing downtowns, one of the key things that they mention is that you need to bring events to the downtown area. So this program and this event that Alicia and Denise have brought to Strathmore has gone a long way to help the downtown core, so I wanted to thank them. And at this time, we're looking to confirm the agenda. Are there any emergent items? Any councillors have any emergent items? No? Any presentations or recognitions? Deputy Mayor Sobel?
Your Worship, I have just a couple items under 8 and one under item 12.
Couple of items under 8?
I have 2 under 12.
2 under 12. Okay, thank you. Which brings us to the confirmation of agenda. We're looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as amended.
I would move confirmation of the agenda as amended, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've all heard the motion. All in favor?
Sorry, Your Worship.
Oh, I forgot to go to...
There's one more addition, a late
Thank you.
addition to the agenda. Item 4.3, Communities in Bloom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and you've all heard the motion. All in favor? And Medina, if you're watching at home, make sure you go to bed at your curfew time. And while you're watching tonight at home, I'm not really sure. It's a nice night. And that brings us to our first delegation. And before we have any delegate, we have someone watching. She's one of the 9 viewers that we sometimes have. At this time, we're going to start our delegations. We have 3 delegations tonight, and I just want to remind the delegations coming forward that we typically give you 10 minutes to present, and then there may be some questions and comments following. So our first delegation is our Acting Staff Sergeant, Dennis Delarond from the RCMP. If you would like to come forward, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I guess my reason for attending the meeting was for the multi-year financial plan forecasting resources for the detachment. Just to clarify the document itself, a couple things. It's strictly a planning document, and obviously there's a number of variables in terms of what stores coming from the different counties when they're coming on board and stuff. So I take all of that aside and focus strictly on the town of Strathmore. And these are just some things that I thought I would bring to council for future planning. And obviously things are going to change depending on what happens for resources in terms of the Langdon solution or whatever you want to call it. So I took it and planned it according to the way things are right now. And obviously they'll have to be adjusted because it's just strictly planning, and that's the sole purpose of the document. I gave it to somebody, and I can't remember who I gave it to, but basically I just came forward to see if there was any questions regarding the document itself.
I saw it, but I was under the impression that there were some changes coming to it, so...
There's actually the document that you had. There's only
It is an older one, yeah.
It was an error on the year. That's all it was.
Oh.
But I have an amended document with the proper values in the proper place. Everything else pretty much is the same. It was just I put the number in the wrong year.
Okay, and I didn't circulate it because you had said that there were changes, so I didn't give them the one that would be changed.
I just checked my
So-
sent items, I realized that I didn't send
Okay.
it.
So we'll need a little time to go through it then?
Absolutely.
Okay, but
Here's
if,
the amended document, if I.
sure. Councillor Peterson?
I would just be happy, Your Worship, to accept it for information today,
Okay.
and then we can come back. And I just would also like to say to the staff sergeant that I am, as I'm sure council is, really impressed with what's been happening in the community with regards to the watch clerks and the cooperation. Great thanks to the County Wheatland for their support in terms of supporting that program as well, and your utilization of it is making a difference. We see it everywhere, to the point that, I can't remember, Councillor Sobel, wasn't it one of our schools said that they couldn't believe how the officers could be in, including our own bylaw, but in several places at once with the incredible job that they're doing in the community itself and around the schools, and just great appreciation.
Thank you, I'll make sure the members are aware. So I can leave that document with you and,
Pat?
down the road when you're ready to, if you wish to discuss anything further. you
Okay,
let me know.
thank you. We just have a question from Councillor
No,
Cox.
just a comment as well. I just wanted to add to Councillor Peterson's, last night at our regional meeting, we were told for the first time in a long time that they saw an RCMP in Rocky Ford, and they were very happy, on one hand, and remarkably wanted to lower their speed on the other, but good job, thank you.
So we have a motion from Councillor Peterson to accept this document from the RCMP as information. All in favor? Thank you. So we'll get a chance to read through it, and then next time we get together, we can, or if we have questions, we can do that then.
Put it on our next agenda.
Sure.
Yeah,
Jen, can you have it put on our next agenda then?
thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Which brings us to item 4.2, the Community Futures Wild Rose Delegation. If you would like to come forward, please. And welcome tonight.
All right, so thank you for having us here tonight to present. This is about halfway through all of our council presentations, so we're making progress. We're very happy to be here. So on behalf of us, we just want to thank Councillor Terry Cox for being a member of our board and representing the town so wonderfully at our regular board meetings, and also to the town of Strathmore for their regular and ongoing support and promotion of our program throughout the businesses in the community in general. So I'm Wendy Gerbrandt, and I'm with Community Futures as Community Economic Development, and this is David Petrovich. He's our business analyst and soon-to-be general manager for Community Futures. So thank you for having us. A little bit ahead of myself. So just to give you a brief, quick history here on the Community Futures program itself. It's a national program, and it was established in 1986. It's federally funded by Western Economic Diversification. And we have 27 locations throughout Alberta and 269 in all of Canada. It's just some of our new branding that we're going, so I'm just kind of flashing a few of the slides. But Community Futures serves an increasingly diverse range of entrepreneurs right here in our own community. And Western Economic Diversification has identified these following strategic priorities for the Community Futures over here in the West. So the first one being Indigenous and women, youth and persons with disabilities, and cluster growth. And specific areas that they've identified that they will support are through clean technology, value-added agriculture, advanced manufacturing, digital industries, clean resources, and health and biosciences. So these are the areas that we are mandated to promote and support. Okay, so I'll let Dave carry on about the Wild Rose program.
So Wendy talked about the national program, and but what you see in Strathmore, our office here, is we actually started in 1987, didn't start in Strathmore, but it moved here. Our vision is full employment in thriving communities, and our mission is to promote and assist and retain economic development and employment activities in the region. Basically, we want to stress that we're nonprofit, we're community owned, and you are one of our shareholders. And there's a list of all our shareholders. We work together to utilize our $6 million investment fund, which actually is now sitting at $6.4 million. And that is the fund that we use for our lending activities and some of our community economic development activities. So just our strategic priorities, and that we are going through a little bit of a change right now. So this is as it stands right now, but it's basically to initiate economic growth and development and promoting healthy, stable, diverse economies. We're ensuring that we manage our $6.4 million, and we are here because we want to not raise our profile so much as let you know what we can do for you. And that is talking about raising the profile, but it really does come down to what we can do for the community. And you'll see some more statistics here in just a minute. But I do want to highlight our 4 pillars. Our loans are probably one of our crucial ones. And we have remaining $2.4 million to lend out, and we want to lend that out desperately. So, when you, and we're going to be asking you later more about this, but if you see before council, entrepreneurs come, or businesses that you see could use some help, we may be able to help them. So that is one of our pillars. Another one is business training and workshops, and that's more of in a general sense. We'll put on sessions about how to business plan, on bookkeeping. We have quite a diverse offering on that, anything to do with business, essentially. Then we go into our business planning and counseling, which is one-on-one, and we do a lot of that. We see so many people come through our doors where it's a free service. We just work with them and help them build their business. We go right from the business plan to any problems that they have. And if we don't have the answers, we have a lot of resources to help them with. And our last and not least is community economic development, which is Wendy will talk about in a minute. But I want to talk about what we have done in Strathmore alone. And when you look at it, over 29 years, we have given out loans of $13,851,637.04 to be exact, within Strathmore only. So those are businesses that you see on your streets over the last 29 years and currently that we have assisted through loans. So we have significant impact on Strathmore. And if you actually break it down, we're at 1,000, based on your 2016 statistics, we're at $1,006.95 per capita. We have made an impact, and we know that in this community and throughout the region. Now, I wanted to point you to this graphs, these 3 graphs actually, and just for me to clarify how the graphs are working, because there's 3 of them. The 3 graphs are broken down into a green bar and a blue bar. The green bar is us, our lending, when we have lent to somebody, what impact we've had, versus the blue bar, which represents the banks and the credit unions. So let's go into the 3 graphs. When we're lending, now remember this is lending, and we always give a value added. Not only do we lend, we counsel, and we do a lot of counseling. And that counseling has accounted for these statistics. So when we are lending, our employment growth rate for businesses we lend to are 8%. The banks and the credit unions, 2.9%. This study was done, and it represents figures between 2009 and 2014. So when we lend on sales growth, we're at 11.2%. Banks and credit unions, 6.2% growth, sales growth. And finally, our business longevity rate, when we're lending to someone, we have over a 5-year period, we're at 66%. Banks and credit unions are at 46%. So, yes.
Thank you. Through the chair, when you talk about longevity, can you just expand on that?
That's a 5-year business survival rate.
Oh,
Is the
survival
best way
rate.
to say
Good.
that. Yeah. Okay, I'll let Wendy speak to some on the community economic development side now.
So again, just to reiterate a little bit of what David just went over, so we have a full suite of financing and business supports to help rural entrepreneurs. So keep in mind that rural definition. We do not support larger urban centers such as Calgary or Edmonton, and we're grassroots. So the idea is to support and be driven at a grassroots level. So as local champions of business and community, CFs know that the quality of life, passion, and profit can coexist well here. So on the community economic development front, so CED, as I call it, is an approach where community members come together and they take collective action and generate solution to common problems at a grassroots level. So that's the definition of CED and my role within our organization and the role our organization plays. So there's a number of activities, and this is just really a handful of kind of our real common ones that are accessed quite regularly or implemented quite regularly. So the first one being capacity building. So we're there to build the capacity of our community groups, of our businesses, right? We don't want to always do the work for them. We need to train them, educate, and give them the knowledge so that they can take over and create and drive those initiatives for themselves. We're working on labor market partnerships, so if anybody's familiar with the recent one that we're working on with the metal fabrication, which is David's project, those are very common, and we have worked on several of those, including ones with Bow Valley College way back 10 years plus when we created those documentations, so we partnered with them. Tourism initiatives, so we were very widely involved in the Canadian Badlands tourism when they first came on board, so they were actually in our office, and there was several supports that were through there, and we've also worked with Boomtown Trail, so we were actually one of the initiators through Boomtown Trail. Strategic planning, we're actually mandated to do 2 this year, and it's pretty static. It stays at that number of strategic planning sessions. Those strategic planning sessions can be led by our office, or we could be in partnership with Culture and Tourism. It could be attending a strategic planning session. So different ways that we can be involved. Board and committee development, we've done actually Western District Historical Service, Society is one of ours that I worked with starting almost 4 years ago. So where we brought in Culture and Tourism, we did board committee and development with that group, but several before that. So there's been lots of involvement there. Business vitality initiatives, actually Strathmore was part of that, and I think Jennifer Brooks was the one that headed BVI up, and Bob, Councillor Sobel, you were part of that. Again, that could be something that could be done as well. And David alluded a little bit on the business training and counseling. So one of our key training, I guess if you want to call it, is our Chinook Entrepreneur Challenge, and that happens annually, and it's a free opportunity for businesses to participate in to actually develop their business plan. New, existing, expanding, whatever phase they're in. And as long as we are a partner in that program, our communities are partners, and it's open. And there's cash prizes tied to that. So that starts in January. So that's one example of some of the training that we work with. Business walks. Actually, we just did the Strathmore business walks with a couple partners last year as well. So those have been pretty popular with us as well, and we support several throughout our region. And different business retention and expansion surveys or projects we can work with. Community beautification, I want to expand a little bit on this one. I know there's a lot of work going into the town's downtown core, and I think this is something that you guys could consider, or at least I should give you the information for you to consider. And it works really well up in our Three Hills in Nehill County area. They've done these programs. So it's a loan program. And it can be, let's just say $5,000, because that kind of seems to be the popular number or most commonly accessed amount, to beautify their storefront. And what Three Hills has done with this, and you can do this in different ways, Three Hills actually reimburses upon the full payment of the loan, reimburses the businesses back for the interest. So it's one way to motivate, encourage, and support businesses to beautify their core or frontages anywhere within your community. We would just initiate the loan, and then the client and the municipality work in how that payment structure works. So that's one way. Another really out-of-the-box way that works well with this is, say you have an organization, a nonprofit, and we call them our social economy loans. And they can actually come in and apply for loans to, say, I don't know, I'm just going to use this one, and this is not in reference to anything, but say it's a museum, okay? And say that museum needed some access to capital to open or expand or add something of benefit to their organization. So you could actually withdraw on a social economy loan. Not everybody can afford to write a $5,000 check, but they can afford a couple $100 a month. So they can come in and access that capital, and we call it a CED project, and they work through with something like that. And that's actually worked well with the Seniors Outreach Center in Three Hills. So they've been very proactive, very successful. We have given out several loans. I'm actually working on another one with Three Hills right now, where they will be doing another potential project with that program. So want to share more about that because a lot of people don't realize that access to that capital to help not just businesses but community groups. Okay, so just to go over these current CED initiatives that we have in our lineup so far for this year, we have the Chinook Entrepreneurial Challenge, which I've mentioned. We're working on our CFTP or CF training program, and it's going to be a full suite of training projects, modules, where we are ready to actually deliver those in-house, something we've been asking for some time. We have a metal fabrication project that we're working on. Alberta Open Farm Days has been one that I've been working on now for 4 years straight. And right now, we're still waiting on the funding announcement if we're successful, but we will be working on an agritourism expansion initiative if successful. So I should know in a couple weeks where that project's headed. Youth initiatives, we have the Rotary Alberta Youth Entrepreneur Camp, formerly AYEC. So again, a week-long free camp for ages 13 to 15 to attend that camp just south of Medicine Hat. And we are partners with Junior Achievement of Southern Alberta. So those are some of our youth initiatives.
So ultimately, I get back to what I alluded to is why we're here. I think our biggest challenge is letting people know what we do, and so we can support them. Our services are free except for the loans, and we work very hard at promoting your community and your economy. And the only way we can achieve that is when council and the members of the administration and anyone they can spreads the word that we exist and that we can help them. We're a nonprofit. We are here to help, not to make a profit ourselves. And I think that's the ultimate message. And I would say that our most successful community on a per capita basis is one where council has promoted us a lot. And we know that because we've seen the statistics, and when you're looking at a per capita, they've reached $3,000 per capita in loans. And that's because even if they have somebody approach the businesses on the planning side, on economic development issues, they're referred to us because they say, oh yeah, you should go there because you can not only get free help, and ultimately you may be able to get a loan with them. So that's why we're here. Please spread the word. So finally, thank you very much. We appreciate you being a shareholder, and we hope that you do spread the word about us. Questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Montgomery.
I don't have a question exactly, but I just want to say that's a great idea about the business, improvements. And so Councillor Bauer and I were on the Downtown Design Review Committee, and so we'll be bringing that to our next meeting, actually.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the presentation, and congratulations on your new position.
Oh, thank you. And by the way, thank you very much for attending our session and for our board meeting as well. So in place of Councillor Cox. Oh, good. Thank you.
And if when you're presenting, if you need any information, like written information, or you want us present to talk about it, we're more than happy to.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Are there any other questions or comments from councillors? Thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thank you.
So I do have a package of information and some rack cards if you wish to leave in the front for entrepreneurs to freely grab. And when you run out, we're more than happy to continue to supply. And there's a poster in here as well you can hang up. So I'll just leave this over here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our next delegation is Communities in Bloom, and Mr. Robert Peary is coming forward. Do you have any others coming forward with you? Oh, okay. Thank you. Welcome.
All the council got it. Okay, perfect. So, hopefully you can hear me. So thank you very much for listening to us. My name is Rob Peary. don't know where the Robert came from, but I'm Rob Perry, and I am the Chair of Communities in Bloom, and we have others with us today. There's Robert Breitweiser, who I'm sure many of you know, has been here many times, Leonard LeSurf, Karen Binns, Jenny Holbrick, and Jenna Neufeld are all here to hold my hand and to tell me when I make mistakes and to answer the questions because I don't know any of the answers. So what I'm actually here to talk to you about is an event which is taking place on August 2nd. But before I do that, just checking if you're paying attention. Before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about background about Communities in Bloom. Hopefully most of you know that Communities in Bloom is a volunteer-based Canadian nonprofit organization committed to fostering civic pride, environmental responsibility, beautification, and to improving the quality of life through community participation. Communities in Bloom Strathmore has been around since 2005. During the last 13 years, we've been involved in numerous projects. They include, but not limited to, these of Centennial Park, Gray Park, the community sign at Kinsman Park, the upgrade of the entrance at the Civic Centre, development of a community garden, planting of over 500 trees in the birth forest as a result of a partnership with the Chinook Credit Union, Eagle Lake Nurseries, and of course the town. We have hosted various workshops. We have urged businesses and residents to maintain their yards, plant trees, and generally be good citizens. We are currently working on a project to enhance the north end of Lambert Park, what some call the Rose Garden, and on July 7th, we'll be bringing together numerous stakeholders to come up with a plan for that area. This is really what Communities in Bloom does. We take on projects. We don't do all the work. We try to engage residents, stakeholders, and come up with a plan that everyone can be proud of. So on the first Saturday in June, you might have seen a bunch of our committee out planting the new birth forest, along with staff from the credit union, town staff, and residents of Strathmore. Now you may be wondering how we've paid for all we've done. Well, we've formed partnerships with businesses like Chinook Credit Union. We've received donations from businesses like Eagle Lake Nurseries, and we've received grants, but the reality is most of the money has come from the town. From the time of the administration of Mayor Keith Schneider to this past year, we received $5,000 to help with our projects. We're not sure what changed with this new council, but we've not received any this year. Your CAO, James Thackeray, offered us up to $2,000 to help with the current project. We're not here today to talk about funding, but we'd like to have that conversation with you before your next budget. Today, actually, we're here to talk to you about an event on August 2nd. On that day, judges from provincial Communities in Bloom will be here to evaluate our town. You should have been given a copy of the 2018 evaluation form, and you will notice that we are evaluated in 6 areas: tidiness, environmental action, heritage conservation, urban forestry, landscape, and floral displays. Now, you may be wondering if we've been evaluated before, and the answer is yes, and the report would have been delivered to council. We've not been evaluated for 4 years. The reason is quite simple. It's a lot of work, and our committee didn't want to feel like doing it, especially me. The evaluation is not an evaluation of our committee. It's evaluation of the town, its leadership, and its policies. Preparation for the judging, however, is largely up to us. We've avoided being evaluated for 4 years, but we could not avoid it any longer in order to call ourselves a Communities in Bloom and meet provincial criteria. So therefore, we're going to be judged this year. We as a committee are very confident that our town will do very well. What does judging involve, and how does it involve council? You should have a copy of our itinerary. Basically, the judges will have a profile book in advance, which highlights how Strathmore is approaching each of the evaluated criteria. During the day on August 2nd, they will be driven around Strathmore. We'll try to highlight our accomplishments under each of the categories. So what we would like from council and the town staff? Well, the reality is you're already doing a great deal. Councillor Peterson arranged for the Travelodge for 2 rooms for the judges at a discounted rate. The Travelodge is one of those corporate citizens that always supports community groups. CAO Thackeray has provided us with the expertise of Carla Coates to create the profile book. Park Supervisor Dave Rhymes has been a constant support through all his years with the town. Craig Nichols and Donna McCallum have lent us support as well. But we still need a few more things. We would ask the town to use social media and the media to advertise the coming of judges and to urge businesses and residents to tidy up, pick weeds, cut grass, etc. We would urge council to consider issuing a proclamation during the week of August 2nd or the week prior, urging residents to prepare for the judges and the numerous visitors which will be here for Heritage Days. We had asked the town staff to prepare for our parks and green spaces for the judges. We know this is not a great imposition because the town always looks great for Heritage Days. We're hoping that the sign you have just saw go by as a mock-up, you probably guess I didn't make that mock-up, might be done and installed by town staff before August 2nd, but maybe not. On August 2nd, what we're hoping is that we'd start off here in the morning with the mayor and council, providing a reception, ideally of coffee, muffins, whatever, and of course greetings from the mayor and council, and be able to answer some questions that they may have. We would suggest that you might invite Craig Nichols, somebody like Chuck Proctor, Donna McCallum, just to help with answering the questions, unless you feel comfortable with the questions. We'd also like it if council would attend an evening reception and meal at the old CPR barn. Where we'll be hosting a meal with the judges. All of you will be receiving an invitation. We might be asking for a bit of help to get some tables and chairs over the barn as well. The preparation for the coming of the judges is a lot of work, but the evaluation will provide us and you with areas where we are successful and areas where we need to improve on. Strathmore Communities in Bloom is confident that our town will do very well. We think it's time to celebrate all the advances Strathmore's made. We are developing an amazing pathway system. We have a Western District Historical Society. We have beautiful parks, green spaces, sports fields. We have planted numerous trees. We are developing a solar farm. We have incredible recycling and composting facility, just to mention a few. We're looking forward to August 2nd, and we look forward to council and town staff continued active involvement in that day. Now you'll note on the itinerary, which you have in front of you, that the award, we will find out how well we did on September 29th that the award's taking place in Sherwood Park. It's actually a National Communities in Bloom conference, and I put, there's even a little link there that it would be nice if people from council and staff could actually attend. So anyways, thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll see you all on August 2nd. And if there are any questions, they'll answer them. No.
Thank you, Rob. Deputy Mayor Sobel?
Thank you, and thank you, Rob, for that. I enjoyed about 99% of your presentation. The 1% dealt with your lack of funding, and I'm going to be very curious to learn more about that.
We would be too.
I have a couple of questions. Well, one is, Rob, what do you folks use? How many judges are there? First of all, are there usually three?
Judges.
Two?
Yeah.
What are you using to cart everybody around that day? Has that been considered yet?
We have. We're hoping.
Okay.
So Karen is going to hopefully find a car.
Or if the town, does the town own a van?
Yes, we do.
That could be put at our disposal for that day.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
We'll certainly
So that's,
That in as
recommend that,
required.
yeah.
Mr. Thackeray, I'm not sure if you heard that. Would the town van be available for the day of the judging so Communities in Bloom could ferry around the judges?
We could provide a driver.
I was to say the driver would be the.
So,
Yes, yes. Leaves you free. Yes, yes.
okay, so we'll keep that communication open then. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sobel? Simone?
I'm just looking here. I think that was all I had. I enjoyed your presentation, and thank you. And I'm sure our staff will be up to the task of completing. I know there's a few projects that are still outstanding out there, like the tables that are at the north of the park near Aspen. So there's a few things to be done, but
They've done
they're
lots,
working.
though.
They have. Excellent. Thank you very much,
Lots of
Rob.
work.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillor Peterson? Councillor Cox and then Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. I agree with Bob. So through the chair to administration, is there a reason why they haven't received their funding?
We'll look into it. We're looking for some documentation, so we don't have anything at the moment, but we were certainly, that's why I offered them some money to bridge the gap, so we certainly want to help them out, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson.
I just wanted to mention that the mock-up that Rob sent around was created by Tom Sadler. He deserves a lot of credit for his dedication to preserving the history of the community. But I also want to say, in terms of Communities in Bloom and the fact that you're here tonight, is that your influence in our community, I'm surprised that you've only been here that long. I thought it was longer. It seems longer. But your influence in our community has certainly been more than subtle. It's been this relentless, optimistic drive that has made sure that none of us forget the warmth and curb appeal that you've brought. And I really believe that it's because of the efforts of Communities in Bloom that the undertaking that has occurred in our downtown is a direct result of that. I'm not saying that you should take the heat that we sometimes take for that, but we're liking it more and more, and we do really think it's a direct, or I think it's a direct influence of Communities in Bloom, and I really, really appreciate that, because you've done a great deal with very little, and your partnerships have been extremely positive and productive.
Well, there's been lots in the community. I mean, you can't take that away from, it's not just
Yeah.
the committee, so.
But you need a driving force. And the last question I have, do you have a name for your park yet, or is that to be decided
That park,
Yeah.
that'll be when the people.
when your group comes together?
That's right. So that's actually chaired by Theo Owl.
Yeah.
He is.
Oh,
actually
yes,
leading
good
that.
idea.
So he,
Yes.
because you know
Yeah,
where he
yeah.
lives.
Mhm.
So I asked, or I guess I kind of voluntold that he would be the one that would lead that. And so on that day, there's, well, I know that Craig and Donna will be there, and I know that, we'll be there, and they've invited Western Historical Society. They've invited somebody from Lutheran Church, so they'll all be
Yeah.
there sort of saying, okay, what do we want that?
So it's a real community consultation.
So that would be what it is about. And then, you know, because my own bias is I would like to perhaps change the name, because when a rose doesn't, there's no roses there. or
Yeah,
anything
not
like
so
that.
much, yeah.
And it's not very English, but there is
Yeah.
things we could do. And so
Yeah.
that's why I like the sign there, which
Yeah.
by the way would look like 2x3,
Yeah,
3x2. It's
yeah.
like the ones at the Birth Forest, if you've seen those.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they'd be mocked up to. But we can't just start digging holes in downtown, because that would be kind of bad. So we have to rely on the staff and stuff for that.
I think you should bring your judges to the edge of the gate at the historical barn, and then you should put them in Jean Vergouwen's buggy and take them the rest of the way.
Well, they'll definitely get the bar, and Bruce will of course do a
Yes,
presentation at the bar.
yes.
So yeah, we're including the historical society, as you see in the itinerary, in that presentation. So we'll be we're driving around, but we'll actually walk from,
Yeah.
I guess what we're gonna call it, Lambert Park, where the old station was, and we'll walk from there up downtown, across, hopefully.
Are you going to use the app, a bit of the app? The walking tour app?
We're definitely using the
Fantastic.
app. Then across onto Third, down to Kinsman Park, and then we'll walk to Kinsman Park. So we won't just be driving around, we'll also, because I really want them to see the downtown. I think it's very impressive what we've done, and, you know, hopefully the banners will be there, and
Yeah.
the plants will be looking great, and it always looks great for Heritage Days, so, I mean.
Thank you so much to all your group.
Yeah, so.
Terrific work.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Montgomery.
I just wanted to echo Councillor Peterson's comments and just say like how much I appreciate your group and all the hard work that you and your fellow committee members have done for this community. And you guys have really, just in the time that I've been living in this community, I've seen the improvements that you guys have kind of driven, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're most welcome. I should mention, Robert Breitweiser has carried the torch for many, many years, so Robert's the one you should be thanking.
Thanks, Councillor Montgomery.
What's his last name?
You might not recognize him.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, councillors? Thank you to you and your group for all the work you've done over the years. And we've come a long way since trees weren't that popular. We've come a long way as far as planting. And I wanted to comment, I think the last time we met at the recent birth forest, you were telling me between the town and Communities in Bloom, how many trees approximately are planted each year?
You plant over 100 caliper, and we plant 45.
So each year, we're adding 145 trees to Strathmore, which I think is amazing, and it all comes back to your group and the efforts of the town and public, too, so thanks again.
And so in the birth forest, they're now over 500 if you think of all the years. So,
Wow.
So,
Thank you very much. Councillor
Your Worship,
Peterson.
I just want to also mention in terms of the Historical Society, I really appreciate you mentioning them, but I also want to acknowledge Karen Binns, because if it wasn't for people like her that developed the original walking tours in the community, we'd be much the poorer for it, and that contribution is well taken and acknowledged.
and I'll just mention, as I've told James, is that in the past, the one area where Strathmore fell down was on heritage conservation. And we now have something we can show off. And so we have an app, we have a society, so I think, we have a barn, exactly. So I think there's lots of positive things we can do now that we didn't used to be able to do before. So we're quite excited about it. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob. And see if you can find Denise in the photo.
That's one.
Did you? There's a contest. We're moving on to confirmation of minutes, and I'm looking for a motion regarding that, and an apology for Councillor Peterson. Too late. No fork.
I will move we accept the minutes from the June 6th regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. You've all heard. Six tabled items. We have 201, which is found on page 33 of your hand. And Jennifer, are you speaking to this or bringing it forward, or is this?
I am, Your Worship.
Oh, Councillor Deputy.
Your Worship, I did ask for this policy to come back. And the issue I have is found in section 3 of the policy, which reads, wherever possible, the Strathmore District Chamber of Commerce participating in new business welcome to town. Word section is, in my opinion, and requesting that the administration with the goal of making the Chamber of Commerce to participate in the business welcome to town program. Is a motion required on that? Or that come back? Maybe council would have to approve that.
Mr. Zachary?
So means that there's a version 3.2. So
3.6.
So we'll bring that back to, I'd like to identify a meeting, so the next meeting.
It's just a couple. It's
And then-
of course the issue I think with this possible. I don't know if that just as a policy that we do in all situations where the business welcome to town come back to council to section 6.
Thank you. You all Noble's motion, point then. Okay. Thank you. The motion, all in favor? Motion is carried.
Your worship, I just had an additional question that doesn't deal with that, but while we're on the topic. New business place this
For this program, it's when a business comes license this back. And they have one, and then they send initial.
we started this policy like, with popular seems for some reason I was hoping policy. So
We're happy to hear this more package because I expected basis getting this ribbon cutting ceremony done that they weren't an actual business. So is there criteria foods based in the so it's July kinds of businesses. So under they are a new business profile on the website and
in the comment, no. 7.1, the art pro. Okay, so we clarified that we all raised our hands and voted. That's okay. Pilot Trent West. Welcome.
Presentation of the staff further discuss the watch clerk successfully over what specifically that was in last year by Council Wall at position. And of course, and decided by was provided identification of council and briefly watch the process to move position from full time. And seek their opportunity and the made a difference in the system to this point. So, something identified that as dealing with investigation times.
presentation. These that have stayed out because they wouldn't have had the time. Where now they have had the time and they've seen left and convictions because the work and always done by and, do the details and be successful in system as much as 20%.
if you join us for the fourth watch clerk. So I'm hopeful that that will happen as well. So Councillor Corbeil.
Just before you make your motion, Council, I do want to introduce the watch clerk that we're speaking about. Moira is at the back of the room. She's trying to hide, but,
Moira? Oh, my goodness. Congratulations.
Thank you, and welcome and congratulations to Moira on your efforts with the watch clerk program in our detachment. Councillor Corbeil.
I move the council approve permanent continuation of the Town of Strathmore funded watch clerk position.
You've all heard the motion. Any more discussion? All in favor? And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you for your presentation. And congratulations. Item 7.2, council remuneration. And at this time, I'd like to call forward Mr. Mel Teedy from the Finance Department to speak on this issue. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report and request for a decision by council is to provide a mechanism on a go-forward basis to deal with council remuneration. As you may be aware, legislation has been passed by the Canadian government to remove the provision that provided for 1/3 of the remuneration in the form of a non-taxable allowance. Because of this change, members of council and the mayor will receive less net take-home pay. An estimate of the tax effect ranges from $2,400 at a marginal tax rate of 25% to $3,455 at a tax rate of 36% annually for council members. The mayor would be, the tax effect on the mayor would be above that because of the larger salary for the mayor. Currently, council members receive an annual salary of $27,881 and the mayor $51,077. Over the last 4 years, very modest adjustments have been made to the salaries of council members and mayor of 1%, 2%, 3.2%, and 3.5% over the previous 4 years, and this represents COLA, or the cost of living increase only. The average annual salary of the councillors in surrounding towns and cities are listed in the report and range from $39,000 in Okotoks to $27,223 in the town of High River. Other issues that could be reviewed are benefits, expense reimbursement, support tools for council members, methodology used to establish future adjustments, association and conference attendance, professional development, and the like. A guiding principle would be transparency and stewardship are real critical components to having an acceptable public perception. Salaries should not be a barrier to serving on town council. There is a need to attract those who are competent and who can understand the complexities of municipal government. Reasonable out-of-pocket expenses while conducting town business should be eligible for reimbursement. And a desire to simplify the council remuneration process and to adopt best practices. I've attached information from the 2017 AMSC Wage and Compensation Survey prepared by Bannister Research and Consulting. And I've also attached a study that was completed for the St. Albert Council Remuneration and Expense Reimbursement. There was significant expense, I understand, in having this report prepared, and it was given to me that the cost of this report was in the area of $60,000. Those are my comments, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Teedy. Deputy Mayor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. The issue of council remuneration is one that's caused much angst and difficulty in the past. The issue, of course, is that no council wants to vote on their own compensation package. Until the provincial government becomes involved in this area, however, there's really a few choices in the matter. Issue of a potential and significant loss of salary in January of 2019 should be addressed. As well, I'm in agreement with proposals that our rules pertaining to the claiming of per diems should be relaxed on the condition that our annual council budget remains the same. In other words, it should be council's decision how that budget should be spent on courses, per diems, travel, etc. But the budget as it now exists should not change. I would support a subcommittee be formed and focused on option B that was recommended and for this matter to be looked at further. And I would hope to see the mayor sitting on that council. Thank you. On that committee. Pardon me?
Deputy Mayor Sobel, I think Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Peterson was wondering if you're prepared to make that motion?
I am prepared to make a motion that council review the attached information and determine the process in terms of reference for amending mayor and council remuneration by forming a joint council and administration committee to review all data available and provide options to council.
And just before we go to a vote, if there's discussion, Councillor Bauer, did you have a comment?
I would be speaking, thank you, Your Worship, I would be speaking in favor of Councillor Sobel's, Deputy Mayor Sobel's recommendation that council form a joint council and administration committee to review all data and provide options to council. Since being on council, and you can see by looking at us, we're a very different council than they have had in the past. We're working men and women that have families and are juggling a myriad of responsibilities. And I think that in order to be effective in this job, we need to take some time off for conferences and day workshops, seminars, as well as meeting and greeting people in the community and being available during working hours to be with our public. And so I would like to definitely see recommendations where our per diem rates are looked at, and it takes into account that we have to be available for our constituents, and that means sometimes taking time off work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Peterson and then Councillor Corbeil.
Your Worship, the only thing I would just make a suggestion that perhaps consistent with this motion that we could also designate with the courteous ask people to sit on this committee, possibly in a separate motion, but it might be worthwhile to do tonight. I would definitely suggest the mayor, as Councillor Sobel suggested, and also Councillor Montgomery, who at his own initiative has undertaken an enormous amount of considered research. But I would leave that to Councillor Sobel. It's his motion. The only other thing I would say is that having been close to councils of the past. My husband sat on council for 18 years. In all the years that he sat on council, it was very rare that there would be more than one person on the council that was retired. Most of the people had very young families. And so they worked as well, to strike that balance. And I think that that's what we're looking to achieve is something that is, as Mr. Teedy said, not preventing eligible people to want to do this job.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would also be in support of a committee. There's, I think, a lot that can tie into this. I know we're trying to go with the transparency where we are going to have our expenses posted quarterly and everything else. So I think we are going in the right direction with that. I think there's a lot of changes that we were talking about with the roles in regards to the mayor, the deputy mayor. Like, I don't know if all that can be combined and, discussed with this committee, but I think it would be worthwhile for sure.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Some good points there, and I think we do. We probably do want the committee to consider the idea that the deputy mayor's position is a changing one in this new council. That's something that we might want to look at as well, and as well as consider that 1/3 tax reduction that's coming our way. Jennifer?
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration just has a recommendation for this resolution. Instead of committee, would it be possible to change that to task force? Only because any committees struck by council must be done so through a procedure bylaw.
Thank you for that, Jen. So Deputy Mayor Sobel, are you okay with that?
Can I ask another question?
Sure, and then we'll come to you, Deputy.
Just to administration, in terms of task force is great. You can also strike ad hoc committees, right? Without procedural bylaws, or no? So it could also be an ad hoc committee with a beginning and an end, and we could do that as well, yeah.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sobel, are you comfortable with the change to the motion?
Absolutely, I think it's a friendly amendment. Doesn't change the circumstances of the motion, so we'd go with, which one are we going with?
If I could just ask a question, do we need to specify in the creation of this task force, the idea that there might be two councillors or a councillor and the mayor on that task force? Do we need to specify numbers and who it might be made up of?
Your worship, you can. In the current resolution, it does say a joint council and administration task force. And then you could have a subsequent motion appointing your council members to it.
And that's what I was going to say. Maybe we could have a subsequent motion to this one.
Okay, so is everyone comfortable with what the motion is concerning the task force? Yep. Then I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion? Motion is carried, and I'm looking for a second motion then. Councillor Peterson.
Your worship, I would move that we, in striking this task force, that this council appoint Mayor Pat Fuel, Councillor Jason Montgomery, and ask administration to appoint a third person to sit on this task force.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillor Montgomery.
You're welcome. And thank you, thank you, Mr. Teedy, for your report and your time tonight. Which brings us to item 8, committee reports. Item 8.1, Deputy Mayor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two reports. The first one is in regards to the Sustainability Committee, and the members of this committee decided earlier this year that one of the main focuses would be to attempt to provide information dealing with water usage in our community. One idea in this regard was to create a short video that could provide some facts and suggestions as to how to conserve the use of water, thus saving the residents some money and as well reducing our water usage levels in our community. This idea was discussed with administration. I'm happy to report that rather than having to come to council looking for a budget to complete this project, the use of our own communication personnel has been provided to assist the group. At present, a subcommittee of 3 committee members has been formulated, tasked with taking the many great ideas of water conservation that have surfaced, and to begin the actual process of creating the video. Our desire is to have the video completed by the end of this month, and it will be primarily shared on Facebook and the town's website. My second report deals with the Traffic Advisory Committee. Much of the discussion in this committee is centered around our COIS project. COIS stands for Keeping Our Youth Safe, and was the name of the successful grant application to Alberta Traffic Safety Fund, where the town was awarded $15,300. This money will be used to enhance visibility and increase safety in all of our school and playground zones, starting in the fall of this year. The committee is working to put together an education program which will see representatives visiting all the grade 1 classes in our community and passing on some tips on how to stay safe when crossing roadways. There's also some discussion in regards to showcasing the changes on the very first day of school, which is September 4th, and inviting Mr. Bruce Adams from the Alberta Traffic Safety Fund to attend. Mr. Adams has gone above and beyond in assisting our committee and has expressed a desire to assist us in future traffic safety projects. There's also been some talk of inviting Mr. Adams' boss, Minister Brian Mason, and I would invite council to weigh in on their opinion on that issue. Certainly, I would be available to prepare the invitation for the mayor's signature, but if we're going to do this, it should be done sooner than later. And those are my 2 reports, and I would welcome council's comments in regards to going the route of inviting the minister.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. Councillor Peterson?
I love the idea of inviting Minister Mason, Deputy Premier Mason. He has a profound interest in this area. I think it's a good acknowledgement for him and the work that he's done in this and in engendering this. And I'd also like to see representation from Safety Patrol. I like the idea. I like the program. Congratulations on getting that money.
Thank you, councillors. Just a question for Jen. Do you need a motion as far as direction for a letter from us?
Yes, please, Your Worship.
Yeah, I would make that motion that, council approve correspondence going to Minister Brian Mason to attend the September 4th opening of the Keeping Our Youth Safe project.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? The motion is carried. Are there any other committee reports? I don't believe there were tonight. Item 9 is items directly related to council. We have nothing, and that brings us to bylaws. 10.1, the Water Utility Services Bylaw number 18-06, and Mr. Jim Simpson is presenting tonight. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. So tonight, what we're doing here is tabling this draft water utilities bylaw. We're not here really to discuss it. We're here to table it to give you ample time to review prior to July 11th, our Committee of the Whole Council meeting. So I think you need the time to get through the 40 pages of this bylaw. I know it's not the most exciting reading in the world, but it's a very important bylaw. We've determined that, the bylaw that's currently in place, we found many, I would say, errors, omissions, contradictions in the bylaw that we decided that a brand-new bylaw was necessary. And in this bylaw, as you noted, we put down 6 of some of the key changes to the bylaw, allowing the town to irrigate land in its own, that it owns with water obtained from the WID, addresses and aligns the bylaw with the Master Servicing Agreement, City of Calgary. It updates current water conservation measures. It also clarifies and updates provisions respecting cross connections that should reduce risk of contamination of our drinking water supplied by the town. It also allows auxiliary water meters to be installed where required or appropriate, but downstream of the town-owned water meter. The billing of all water supplied by the town must be through a town-owned water meter. So, I'm sure we'll have lots of good discussion on that as we get there, but what it's really saying is that, you can have an auxiliary meter, but it only can be after a town-owned water meter. And the auxiliary water meters will not be used for billing purposes by the town, only the town water meters. Okay? And lastly, just various housekeeping matters. And we have, since we put this together, we have noticed some typographical errors and the odd little thing here and there. We'll be coming back on the 11th with some minor corrections. The other major thing that you will notice in here, we haven't dealt with the fines yet. And we will be dealing with that and bringing that back on July 11th. And that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know we're not discussing this. But the only thing is I'm kind of looking for a clarification. I have heard that town residents cannot get permits to get WID water.
Permits from the town?
From WID, because I'm not sure if it's a WID issue that they're not allowing residents from Strathmore, or if it's a town issue. It's a town, yes, that's what I've heard, but I'm not sure on that.
It's the rumor.
Yes, that is the rumor.
The WID, we have followed up on that. The WID has indicated that they will give water to the residents to use. The town has to ensure that water is being put directly onto the lands. And
absolutely,
we have to make sure that there's no cross-contamination with our water system. So there is a section in here, you'll see when you read.
Oh, okay, yeah, I did go through it, I just didn't, I was
There is a
looking at a
section
different
where it
part.
says the water that a town resident might get from the WID will be in a tank or a truck or whatever. It has to be directly taken out of that and put on the irrigation lands.
Okay, I'll wait for it. Oh, absolutely.
And we,
That's where we're not sure about some of the pipes. So that's why we need to clean up this whole thing. It's
And drainage, and drainage.
It's big. That's why we wanted to have a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. Councillor Peterson?
I was just asking for consideration as I went through this, I had sort of 5 general questions. And rather than taking up public time with my considerable ignorance in some of these issues, would it be okay prior to the matter coming forward in the committee of the whole to put it to questions to you through email? Would that be okay?
that would be wonderful. You know, I would say all of council, if you do have those questions, you may have the same questions and we can, you know, we can put them together and put an answer together and bring it back to the meeting.
I just had one other question for clarification, Your Worship. When I was going through this on Schedule A and Schedule C regarding restrictions, about the consideration about utilizing, you know, because we're on the Calgary water, we've never really, you know, that's why I know we needed a new bylaw, because it was just so convoluted. If there was consideration given to sort of following the restrictions put on by Calgary as a result of, that's kind of what you followed
Yes, it
here?
was. Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
okay. Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson, and thank you for your report, Jim, and we appreciate being given time to go through this for the July 11th meeting. We don't need a motion, do we? We do? Okay, so we need a motion to bring that to the July 11th meeting.
So
Thank
move, Your
you,
Worship.
Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion to bring this to discussion on the July 11th, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Which brings us to item 10.2, the Fire Services Bylaw number 1802. And Trent, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, Your Worship. Before you tonight is the Fire Services Bylaw. Yeah, I start with the report summary, and in large part, it was the recommendation of administration that instead of trying to amend a beast of a bylaw that was not put together well and put council into a very precarious situation of approving operational procedures and being the appeal body for operational procedures. So the decision was at that time with then Director Jim Simpson that we would rewrite the bylaw and we would sort those things out so that we focused on the Municipal Government Act, the roles and responsibilities of council, and deconflicted a whole bunch of the things that were in the old bylaw. So what we did was the operational procedures or the schedules in the old bylaw were completely removed, I speak about it briefly in this report, and focused on the governance definitions. And we couldn't focus on the fees in this one because the fees are already Schedule M of another bylaw, which which I came before council February of last year, March of last year, and council then reviewed and made the changes to the fees bylaw at that point in time. So there were significant number of changes required to update and amend the bylaw. Administration felt that it was just better to build a new bylaw. Bylaw was 13 years old, built in a process and in a way that was, actually I won't even go there because it didn't fit then either. You didn't have those responsibilities then either. So it needed to be rewritten, as there were many operational things in nature, of that in nature. The amendments, we ensured as administration that the bylaw and the amendments that are put before you here today also aligned with the Council Corporate Action Plan identifying the weakness in outdated policies and bylaws, and also with the strategic plan in 2018 identifying the high priority of effective and efficient protective services, and also number 6 of the strategic plan. With the development of the new Council Strategic Plan, administration can now ensure that bylaws reflect the direction of Council and administration's operational requirements related to fire services. And most importantly, this new bylaw, bylaw 18.2, the fire services bylaw, is written, and it can be reviewed, and if need be, it can be updated. It's more nimble, and it can be updated often, and more often than every decade. Because it's clear that the town will be seeing changes over the next several years, and with the positioning of the fire services strategic master plan, helping to influence and guide and support council's decision-making, which will require corresponding fire service amendments and changes. Before you tonight, you have the bylaw as well as the corresponding fire service levels, which are the two pieces of bylaw is the governance, and the service levels are the requirements of council to set, which gives me the direction as the fire chief to go forth and provide those levels as you've requested. And so before I conclude with my RFD, I do want to point out a couple of things in the bylaw. So in the bylaw, you'll see it's lean and mean. We have good definitions. I do want to point out that in D and C, you'll see we're waiting for a policy number, and that policy number will come after the service level has been considered. So those would be the things that would have to come and be put in as part of a housekeeping practice after council has reviewed and approved the new fire service bylaw.
Okay.
Quickly in here, after the definitions, interpretations, very straightforward piece of bylaw drafting. The fire department and the definition, or the discussion on what the roles of council establishing the fire service and what the council at a 50,000 foot level wants fire service to do, which is in section 4. The authorities and responsibilities of the senior head or the fire chief in the fire service, and those accountabilities and responsibilities, and then the jurisdiction, or in this case, the where you want these services to be provided. So the boundaries, and then that also outlines and identifies the jurisdictions where we have mutual aid agreements, which are also those agreements that are passed or approved by council. And lastly, the enforceability of the bylaw and the appeal process, which now goes to an appropriate level, which is the chief administrative officer or the designate, which is the director of community and protective services, and not put council in that precarious position of adjudicating an appeal process over a decision that an interpretation of their own bylaw. So that is the bylaw. I can carry on to the service levels, or I can answer questions now on the bylaw piece, if however you wish, Council.
Councillor Peterson, I think, just has one question.
I just have one question, and it is on page 197 of the document, under number 6, jurisdiction. And in A, where the express authorization of written contract or agreement providing the supply of fire rescue protection outside the town's boundaries. And then again, this is referenced, of course, in mutual aid under section 10 of the policy. And my question relates to your sensibilities. What are your sensibilities around mutual aid agreements and this kind of thing? Are we bound by any currently? In the past years and perhaps even decades, this has been a challenge and a source of some discontent occasionally on many sides of many partners. I'd just like to hear your assessment of that. And I appreciate the fact that we have a bylaw written by the former Alberta Fire Commissioner.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I'm going to ask you to ask your question again, please, so that I understand it.
Well, are we bound by any current mutual aid agreements?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, so those still are in place?
All of them are.
And this does nothing to those?
No.
Okay, that's
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you for the entertainment, too. Deputy Mayor Sobel.
Just two issues. Further to that, I'm happy to see the addition of the word agreement in there. So agreement can be a verbal agreement, and I'm talking about situations where there's no time for a written contract, et cetera, and just authorization by the fire chief for us to attend on an emergent basis. And the other issue I have, are you at all interested in spelling corrections?
Absolutely.
5.8, second line, enter.
I was waiting for Councillor Montgomery to bring
I
that
know,
up, actually.
he probably was gonna do it.
Maybe it is an entree.
Entree.
Okay.
And I'm prepared to make a motion, Your Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel.
If I can find it again, I would move that council give first reading to Fire Services Bylaw 18-02.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Sobel. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Bauer.
I move that council give second reading to Fire Services Bylaw number 18-02.
And not a seconding.
Not a second.
A seconding?
And is there any discussion at this second reading? All in favor? And the motion is carried. Councilor Montgomery.
I will, I will screw this one up. I'll move that council give unanimous consent for a third reading of Fire Services Bylaw number 18-02.
Thank you, Councilor Montgomery. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? That motion is carried. Councilor Cox.
I move the council give third and final reading of the Fire Services Bylaw number 18-02. And, do I do the next one too?
No, just one motion.
Okay.
Thank you. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? Motion is carried. And Councillor Corbeil.
I move that council rescind policies and procedures number 2301 and number 2308 related to fire services.
All of them. Two.
Oh, two, I see. Okay, 2301 to number 2308.
Thank you, Councillor Corbeil. You've all heard that motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Trent.
I clearly speak better than I write or type, so.
Could I ask one question? I know this wouldn't necessarily be covered in the bylaw. But what I wanted to, it ties into Councillor Peterson's question and Deputy Mayor Sobel's about the joint fire agreements. I know it wouldn't be covered in bylaw, but do we do joint training sessions, like a day with Siksika Nation and the County of Wheatland?
We actually have been training fairly regularly with the County of Wheatland. We had in National Fire Protection Association, professional firefighter levels are 1001. There's two levels, and both departments were together through the theory as well as the practical examinations, and we've continued with that. We've got training props that we're able to share, and we have excellent instruction that we definitely will. I'm waiting for the opportunity to be able to have more extensive conversations with my partners in Siksika so that we
Perfect.
can definitely do
The reason I asked is last fall we had some scares with brush fires in the Siksika Nation and County of Wheatland area. So I was just thinking that training sessions with the three groups would be really beneficial.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
That
Councillor
is-
Cox.
I just have a relevant question, fire-wise. Was there a fire this morning?
Yes,
Okay.
not really.
No.
There was alarms down on Slater Road.
There was smoke, though.
Yeah, I saw the smoke coming out of Hillview too, so.
No, I
that
saw the
happens.
smoke over there.
Yeah, no, it was nothing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
We were chasing smoke.
As opposed to blowing it.
You do that? Ow. Next, I'd like to move on to the fire service level of service policy, that which council also sets for the fire department. based on budget and based on training expectations and the skills of the department, which over the next decade will also be changing with the development that continues to occur in town, as well as the commercial and industrial development that will inevitably be also growing in town. Training needs to also follow, and equipment also needs to follow. And so one of the key things about us being involved in the front end of area structure planning, as well as high-intensity industrial development, is we can forecast out some needs so that we can better prepare information for council to be able to see it coming through the budget process. And that is definitely something that I will be doing in support of Community and Protective Services in our department going forward this year with budget, but also aligning that with the Fire Service Strategic Master Plan. So this will look quite a bit like the former level of service policy. However, what I've done is I felt that there was not enough detail or clarity in some of the actions and activities that were in the previous bylaw. And for instance, where it said rescue, we do rescue. Okay. What kind of rescue, right? There's so many different kinds of rescue. High angle, rope, confined space, water, ducks on a roof. So thank you for letting me be able to bring that out. So what I've done is I've expanded the definitions, made them clear for council, and I won't go through them, but I've also identified specifically what operational or awareness levels are. So that talks about our capabilities, the level of our training, and our equipment. So where you would see in some of the service levels an awareness level or an operation level, and it's council's wish that we were at a technician level, well, then I have to go back and come to you with the training costs and the number of people that need to be involved for those type of responses, if we have the ability to even muster that many people to make those responses, and then the ongoing costs beyond that. So the way that it's set up now, council has the ability to take a look at the service levels and enhance in some areas if it's felt, or for me to come forward and say, we had a lot of calls in this particular area, and I think we need to enhance our abilities in this particular area. And you already know when I say we need to go to a technician level, you've got the definitions. We talk about the training and the requirements of training. We broke it down. I broke it down into the emergency responses, structural fire. I even continued with the dangerous goods and flammable liquids. And then I went very specifically in the rescue area that I completely elaborated on, so that you see where we talk about we're able to be a technician level all of the time for still water and ice rescue. We're able to be a technician level at all times, which is the highest level of capabilities. Where we talk about medical support, there would be no need for us to be a technician level because we don't do medical services. We do a lot of medical calls and we do support, but we don't need to be at that technician level. We need to be at an operational level so that we bring care, comfort, and calm to the family as well as the person, but nothing more. So not going out of our swim lane, staying in our scope and our book of business. Entrapment rescue was broke down and explained. And one thing that was never in there is lost person rescue, because we do get involved constantly in lost person rescue, whether it's people walking away from seniors' homes, dementia, Alzheimer's, also children that are autistic, and there's techniques and patterns and ways to look for those people when they wander off, because at that point their mind works in a specific way. So I've identified specifically that yes, we do that, and we do it to a certain level, so that it's not, well, what were you guys out? Well, we were looking for someone that had wandered off for a lost child, and well, I don't remember that we did that. And, you know, that seemed like a lot of resources. This way you know that we do that, and when someone asks you, what were the fire trucks doing out last night? Well, we could have been doing that. Technical rescue, of course, these are none of these are new services. They weren't defined before, and they weren't specific before. Hazardous materials, swift water, were all services that we provided. And then the last is our mutual aid with our partners. That concludes my presentation on the service levels, and I am open for any questions.
Thank you, Trent. Councillor Montgomery.
I guess my question would be for you or possibly administration. Do we get any sort of additional funding for having hazardous goods routed through our community? Like, no, that's just on us.
Provincial highways.
Disaster planning, right, though?
Pardon me?
There is some capacity for disaster planning in that case, right? That's provided by the province, I think?
Well, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, we always have access to grants for planning for events, not specifically disaster or dangerous goods, but any type of good that goes through your community. We would probably have to do a far more in-depth account of what goes through our community to maybe target some of the carriers which might but no, we don't get anything specific right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Thackeray?
I think to support what the chief's saying, we don't get any provincial money because we have the Highway 1, so there's no direct funding. What we can say is, as Trent said, we can say that's bad, and if we have to drill into deeper, we can get some planning dollars, as you're saying, but we don't do hazardous attenuation. We would have to call for other services and other things in order to really deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah, we make safe. Shelter in place, evacuate, control spill, and carriers would be responsible for all the remediation. We would bill them for all of our time, anything that we use, any inconvenience that is, not even through DRP. We would bill the carriers directly. And so, yeah, for any of those any billable call, I'm making sure that we get money for those things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just looking at mutual aid, 10.3, and I just would mind if you elaborated as to why you underlined does not have an agreement.
First,
10.3.
yes. So, as a for instance, okay, last year, we were called by the Vulcan RCMP detachment. We don't have an agreement with Vulcan. We don't have an agreement with the town of Vulcan or the detachment, but we were contacted by the RCMP to do body search and recovery in McGregor Lake because we have the equipment that can do that properly. So it puts at my discretion, based on those three parameters, the ability to support someone without an agreement. Okay. And anything beyond those three points, then it becomes a request to council, two members of council to approve, so that we can go out of town.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Peterson.
Just had a very brief question to the manager of protective services regarding when you talked about identified groups for people. Would you ever consider murdered and missing Indigenous women in that group? They represent a large component.
They were the people that I was thinking of because we have Java, who is the best
Yes,
dog
yes,
in this country.
Yes.
As part of our department, and I've been working as diligently as I can to make those connections, to be able to have that resource, because that resource available to the RCMP or whoever, because that resource has been used internationally, and I can't say any further on who used them, but But yes, absolutely. That was exactly who we were thinking of.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Fire Chief West. I have a question. On Monday, we had a Wheatland Regional Partnership meeting with the county, and the EMS people from Calgary came and gave a presentation. And during that presentation, it was noted that a fire chief a fire chief within a municipality can request Stars Air Ambulance to come out to a scene of a crime. And they're the only ones that can usurp and say that they request that. Would it be beneficial in this policy to note that?
So let me think.
Under mutual aid or
No,
protocol?
I'm actually thinking that in the bylaw, the fire chief has the authority to do that in the bylaw in section 5, where it's the fire chief or the incident command at a scene would have that authority to call STARS. I wasn't aware that STARS had started to, or not STARS, but AHS had started to narrow the scope, because when I was the chief in Rocky View, a citizen could make the call and talk to dispatch and also make the request for STARS based on the information that they shared. And what they seen. So if it's starting to creep up, that might be a concern of mine.
Is that everything? Councillor Peterson?
Yeah, there were other considerations that were brought up last night. So indeed, a citizen could do that. And they are looking at clearing up some of the confusions in dispatch at this point. So they can go through the doctors, for instance, that order STARS. There's all kinds of things that they can do, but they seemed a little bit uncertain of their own protocols and how those were manifesting today, and looking at changing and adjusting, and certainly have a great desire to meet with the fire chiefs in the communities and the heads of protective services.
Thank you. And I do still, through the chair to Councillor Bauer, I still do believe that in section 5 of the actual bylaw, myself or the incident commander or the designate would have the authority and would do that right away.
Thank you, councillors. Do you have further report? Okay. Just a question to Jen. Do we need a motion to accept this policy?
Yes, Your Worship. Yes, Your Worship. 2301.
Thank you.
I would move to accept policy 2301, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you, Trent. I don't believe we have urgent business tonight, and we move on to item 12, questions between councillors and council statements. 12.1, 12.2, is that both of yours, Councillor Peterson?
Councillor Sobel was first.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Sobel.
I will be quick, Your Worship. As council is aware, we recognized 13-year-old Emma Moore some time ago for the amazing work she has done in raising money and products for a number of local charities and nonprofit organizations. Having heard of a program started by our Member of Parliament, Mr. Martin Shields, where he recognized volunteers in the Bow River riding, I submitted an application on behalf of Ms. Moore. I'm happy to report that she recently received a volunteerism award for 2018 issued by Mr. Shields with his thanks and appreciation for everything that Emma has done. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that, Deputy Mayor Sobel, and congratulations to Emma, a very deserving person. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to start out by just acknowledging that tomorrow is National Indigenous Peoples Day, and there are lots of things going on in our community, and our town has been very, very involved in this, and I'm really proud of our community for embracing this, and the artwork that's in our council chambers and throughout the town office and throughout many of our municipal offices in the community. And also tomorrow, the Wheatland Society of the Arts, with lots of help from FCSS and other agencies, Lauren and people. There is a event, I think tomorrow, that they are again opening the at the Wheatland Society of the Arts at 1 o'clock. The exhibit on murdered and missing Indigenous women, which opened up on Monday. and it runs till July the 6th. And a young girl from Siksika wished to honor her cousin, Desiree Oldwoman, who went missing 4 years ago, has never been found, a young autistic woman who very sadly went missing. Her grandmother was a proponent of the program that this young woman from Siksika started. So that has been on display in Wheatland Society of the Arts and supported by them, and I'm very grateful to it. And following up from that, one of the things that I also very much appreciate is all the work that our Director of Protective Services has done in building cultural competency in this area. And the percentage of Indigenous people living in our community is growing very rapidly, and it's really great to see the response, and really commend our administration for, we have the very first ever Indigenous summer student working in Strathmore, and I think that that's great. And Marigold Library has also hired 2 Indigenous students to work in all the communities surrounding Strathmore. And I was thinking in light of that, asking administration to consider, we're doing all this work, and I just wanted to mention that Old Sun College in Siksika has developed 30-some courses that have now been accepted for accreditation, although you don't need to take them for accreditation, at the University of Calgary and the University of Lethbridge, and they're now under consideration as well by Mount Royal University. And those courses are available to communities. They'd love to come into your community whenever you're doing all this good work that you're doing. There are people out there that have extraordinary expertise, and they'd love to share it. So it's just a consideration that we could build into our strategic planning. You're doing it anyway, but it's just a way that would smooth it out. I also just wanted to note that Prospect asked me to pass on their thanks to the councillors and mayor showing up today. They were really, really thrilled by that, and really great service to have in our community. And the last thing is, I was just wondering if we've heard any more about our tourism initiative.
Your Worship, I can answer that really quick. Your Worship, with regards to that, as of Friday, I think we have enough members corralled to bring something to council. We have, the last person I was hoping submitted his or her, so I know, prejudge anything. So we should be able to bring that to council pretty quick for nominating members. Took a little bit longer than I hoped to wrangle folks, but yeah.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Councillor Peterson. Which brings us to item 13, administrative inquiries, and Jen?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have one inquiry. It's from Councillor Sobel. It reads, some time ago, our municipality made an agreement with Fortis to get all of our streetlights converted to LED. Is it possible to ascertain what the status of that project is?
Thank you.
Could we add?
Councillor Peterson?
It's just the lights in the dog park and all of those things that were sort of value added. Yeah.
So in other words, we're checking on the status of how they've done as far as the replacement and addition. Thank you. Are there any other administrative inquiries? Okay, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to go back in camera. Councillor Corbeil.
Move into in camera.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And that motion is carried. We're going in camera at 8:56.